Welcome to this video about an introduction to autism, part 3 of 4, class-based approaches. How might we know if a pupil is distressed in the classroom? An autistic pupil may feel scared, overstimulated, and overwhelmed by the various demands of routine classroom lessons. For example, they might feel that they don't understand, don't like, or can't do a class-based activity. It could also be a build-up over time or a reminder of a negative situation from a while ago. Expressing this distress verbally might be tricky, so they may communicate this through other behaviour. Autism, however, is not a behaviour. It is a way of thinking and understanding the world, which results in behaviour. Always trying to understand why the person may have responded in the way they did by working backwards to find out the root cause. There will always be one, and it will always make sense in their world. These are the words of Sarah Hendricks, an autistic adult and autism specialist. This video focuses on how we can make classrooms and class-based activities less distressing. Visuals. Throughout this video, which is focused on a structured teaching approach, we will refer to the use of visuals. Why? Autistic people generally understand and process pictures more easily than words, as they tend to be more visual learners. Pictures don't need social understanding, interaction, or interpretation. Learning may be facilitated by silent demonstration. A picture is worth 1,000 words. And visual strategies reduce the reliance on support from adults, and this leads to greater independence. Here is an infographic about visuals versus text. Preparing the optimal classroom. To reduce sensory overload for autistic pupils, the classroom environment should ideally be tidy and unfussy, or at least have sections which are like this. Use clear labels and purposeful visuals around the room. Have a space available for autistic pupils to take time away from others. This includes for independent work and a quiet area. Not have strong smells, for example food, perfume, etc. Position autistic pupils in the seating plan away from distractions, and reduce other unnecessary sensory inputs. For example, putting felt pads under chair legs to prevent the scraping sounds of chairs being pushed back on the floor. Other proactive ways to prepare the classroom and classroom materials. General inclusive practice that benefits everyone includes using visuals to support text, pictures, videos, diagrams, etc. Preparing activities that allow pupils to present their work in different ways, flowcharts, mind maps, etc. Using colour coding in lesson materials and classroom displays. Ensuring equipment is ready, well ordered and working. No visual clutter around the whiteboard, and a clear display of the activities for the day or for the lesson, plus staff pictures if appropriate. Reasonable adjustments. At this point, we are considering how to enable autistic pupils to access learning and overcome potential barriers in lessons. We can recognise that classroom strategies include the regular application of reasonable adjustments. The reasonable adjustments duty is owed to disabled pupils, as defined in the Equality Act 2010. Although as education professionals we would not normally think of autism as a disability, autism and other conditions under the neurodiversity umbrella are broadly included in this definition within the Equality Act. The duty is to take such steps as it is reasonable to have to take to avoid substantial disadvantage caused by a provision, criterion, or practice applied by or on behalf of a school, or by the absence of an auxiliary aid or service, and requires a school to take positive steps to ensure that pupils can fully participate in the education provided by the school, and that they can enjoy the other benefits, facilities, and services that the school provides for pupils. Finally, schools need to think in advance about what pupils might require and what adjustments might need to be made for them. Workstations. Workstations based on teach theories are set up in part to help pupils to avoid distractions. They are not in place to isolate. Ideally, each classroom will have a workstation in an appropriate place, for example, away from the door. Workstations should be kept clear and simple. In some cases, autistic pupils may require this as a regular and personalised, reasonable adjustment. Presentation of lesson timetables. A colour-coded lesson timetable can help an autistic pupil to prepare for their school days, to reassure themselves, and to predict what is likely to happen. The example below provides a simple overview of all lessons in the pupil's timetable. This can be enhanced by using corresponding labels and symbols. For some pupils, a daily timetable may be beneficial. This does not work for all autistic pupils. Knowing too much detail about what is happening next can also be anxiety-provoking. Is this an effective visual timetable? No, it could be better. This is too busy. It includes unnecessary information, for example, the weather, and too much information. A younger autistic child might need a lot less on their timetable, with the use of Velcro and perhaps a finished box. Let's have a look. Here are two examples of visual timetables for earlier developmental levels. Common reasonable adjustments. The following are examples of reasonable adjustments that can be appropriate for some autistic pupils. Passes or allowances for time, step out, movement breaks and/or slightly early or late start. Sometimes a pupil might need to be prompted to use these. Modifications to uniform requirements or expectations. Allowing the pupil to wear ear defenders or something similar. Allowing opt-outs and shorter periods of time for some activities, for example, whole class activities. Providing extra time to absorb information, complete work, etc. Putting in place an alert or help system. And allowing the pupil to record instructions using technology. Homework. Homework can be a frustrating and upsetting experience for autistic pupils. As well as the homework task itself, difficulties with self-organisation, concentration and short-term memory can make it a source of confusion and significant stress. To support homework completion, set homework online if possible, or give plenty of time to write it down, or provide a sheet or printed sticker with the homework instructions on it, or if there is a TA in the class, ask them to check or write it in or clarify for the pupil. Differentiate homework as appropriate with clear options, for example, a video rather than a verbal presentation, mind map, not a written answer, etc. Remind pupils that it's okay to ask if they do not understand. Homework, support for pupil and their parents and carers. Even when homework is differentiated effectively for autistic pupils and they have recorded it correctly, the task of doing the homework can still be a significant challenge. It is important to ensure that these pupils and their parents and carers know how to manage homework demands. We will cover homework and study skills interventions in the next video, including the use of homework clubs. Assistive technology in the classroom. Motor difficulties and dysgraphia, these are specific handwriting difficulties, are common in autistic children. Therefore, assistive technology, if available, can make a big difference to their learning experience. This includes devices which can help pupils to record their work more efficiently and accurately. For example, laptops for word processing, text reading software, text-to-speech and voice recognition software, mind mapping software, talking word processors, and reading pens. For some autistic pupils, assistive technology will not be required. However, for those pupils using assistive technology as part of their normal way of working in lessons, it is important that they receive the necessary training to use this effectively. The pupil needs to have sufficient time to embed their new working practices and for it to become automatic in their use of this technology. Tests and other controlled assessments. Autistic pupils can underachieve in tests and controlled assessments for a range of reasons, for example, due to processing difficulties, sensory needs, inattention, and other specific learning difficulties. During tests and other types of controlled assessments, some pupils may benefit from extra time. If so, it is usually 25% extra. Allowance to take rest breaks. Working in a separate room, supervised. And the use of assistive technology and/or a scribe in line with their normal way of working. Making tasks manageable. A blank page can cause anxiety for an autistic pupil. This might be because they have to process a lot of information at once, and so the task may seem insurmountable. Their concept of time might be poor. They might find multitasking very difficult. It might also be because they want their work to be perfect and fear that they will make mistakes. These fears may lead to the pupil not starting a task or destroying their work. One strategy for preventing this is to provide the pupil with work in smaller, more manageable tasks. Can we add more structure to tasks? Task management sheets and boards. Task management sheets and boards support the pupil to plan and check off their work in the right order. This system provides structure, reassurance, and encourages independence. Now and next. Generally used for young autistic children at earlier stages of development, now and next is an appropriate strategy requiring adult support for pupils who cannot cope with more than 2 tasks at a time. These are also a form of very granular, highly structured visual timetables, incorporating a motivating activity. Communication boards and books. Also for autistic children who are at early developmental levels, typically very young children in mainstream schools, a communication board or book is a visual aid that provides a range of pictures or symbols that represent various objects, actions, and concepts. These boards are designed to assist children to express their thoughts and preferences when they are unable to do so verbally, which reduces frustration and enables them to show what they know and want. Using timers to supplement task management strategies. Even with task management strategies in place, it can be difficult for an autistic pupil to stop their work once they have started, especially if it's an interesting task. It can also be difficult because they might feel compelled to finish it. A timer can be very helpful in helping the pupil to manage their time. It can also support turn-taking in paired and group activities or preparation, waiting time, for an activity that is coming up. Timers can be used also for the whole class. Using pictures and symbols to support text. Symbols are a good way to support an autistic pupil's understanding of text. Apart from the use of symbols for labels in the classroom and for visual timetables, this can be used by teachers when preparing differentiated worksheets. It is important though for staff to understand that they should not over-symbolize. Symbols should just be used for key words. Personalized visuals to support emotional regulation. There are many ways that visuals can be used to support pupils who need them in lessons, supplementing the strategies we have outlined. Use of these visuals, including some of the tools we've covered already, requires some individualized teaching first, which we will cover in the next video. Are we using them routinely and effectively? Personalized items to support emotional regulation. Sometimes having access to specific personal items can help autistic pupils when they are in the classroom. For example, having a notebook or scrapbook to write down their worries or to doodle, perhaps with a worry box to place their notes in, photos and symbols to soothe or prompt them, and use of a box of calming items. Classroom top tips. Given what we've discussed so far, let's now take stock and look at some of the key teachers' top tips for autistic pupils and for pupils who are presenting with some traits of autism. Remember, putting in place some of these strategies in the classroom is an important part of the ongoing graduated approach to identification of needs. In some cases, pupils who have been presenting with barriers to learning may respond very well to these strategies. That is, they're making good progress from their starting points, and further identification steps within the graduated approach may not be necessary or prioritised at this time. Classroom teaching tips 1. Chunk work using visual supports. Use the pupil's interests to motivate them in the classroom. Say the pupil's name first, followed by an instruction. Give clear and precise instructions. Use concrete language. For example, place the book on my desk, please, paired with a pointing gesture towards the object. Use positive and directive language. For example, Joshua, put your feet on the floor, rather than Joshua, stop kicking. Avoid idioms, but if you do use them, explain them. Model and prompt social behaviour, both subtle or explicit. Give the pupil advance notice of the requirement to give a verbal response in a task. Restructure language when it is clear the pupil is not understanding, making it shorter, simpler, and precise. And scaffold social interactions. Consider pairings, be explicit about roles in group work, and explain the social expectations of a task. Classroom teaching tips 2. Give prompts, verbal and written, to aid comprehension and recall, for example, prompt cards and frames. Provide unambiguous requirements and endings to a task. For example, how many sentences, how long, etc. Encourage the pupil to seek assistance from a peer. Use materials such as post-it notes or cards for sequencing information that may need to be rearranged. Use or encourage the pupil's use of mind maps. These can help to reinforce the connections that need to be made between key points. They can also support recording and sorting. Ensure that the pupil has information sheets to refer to in addition to spoken instructions. Avoid prolonged, disproportionate, or confusing sanctions. And give the pupil advance notice of changes and transitions. This can include the use of countdowns and talking with the pupil directly about any unscheduled or unexpected change. Using praise as a tool. Praise can be one of the most powerful tools to engage and motivate pupils, including personal focused praise. This type of praise tends to focus on the pupil's natural talents or skills that come easily to them. It includes effort-based praise. This type of praise emphasizes what pupils can control, focusing on something specific that the pupil has worked hard to learn, including mistakes made along the way. And it includes task-specific praise. This type of praise, direct, qualified, positive feedback in the form of precise statements, lets pupils know what they are doing well. This involves praising the process and progress, not just the outcome. It is important to recognize that some autistic people don't like explicit praise, especially in front of others. This can make them feel uncomfortable. Showing a praise visual, giving a thumbs up, or providing verbal praise away from others can help. This can be reinforced by providing permanent visual reminders of successes and planning activities that enable the autistic pupil to demonstrate their knowledge and abilities to peers. Using visuals to contract incentives. Some autistic pupils might respond well to contracting that involves a reward or incentive. Some pupils, however, are not motivated by this strategy, although some less explicit reinforcers might work, and others simply do not need it. Effective deployment of TAs. Teaching assistants, TAs, are a very valuable human resource in every school. Therefore, effective deployment in lessons is critical to ensure that they have a positive impact on the progress and well-being of autistic pupils. We know that TAs supplement and do not replace the role of the class teacher. Let's now quickly consider what effective TA support looks like for these pupils. Effective TA support for the teaching of autistic pupils. Scans and sharply monitors the room or the group first to assess whether or not support is required, so that autistic pupils are not given unnecessary support time, nor waiting or asking for help. This includes checking that pupils know what to do. Knows when to move following support. They do not stay with an autistic pupil for any longer than necessary and may provide intermittent support and/or short, more intensive block support. Provides autistic pupils with good thinking and response time so that they can think for themselves and can scaffold their learning as much as possible. Uses a range of questioning strategies and other strategies to promote independent learning, as well as extensions and challenges, and avoids a focus on task completion, spoon-feeding, over-prompting, or repeating verbatim what the teacher has said. Breaks down instructions and provides more detailed, sometimes rephrased or alternatively phrased explanations and learning objectives or success criteria, as well as reinforced key vocabulary. And acts as a talk partner, particularly if combined with speech and language difficulties, to rehearse when pupils need to ask questions, respond, and contribute. Effective TAs support marking and assessment of autistic pupils. Provides clear feedback and evaluations to the teacher and the autistic pupil, verbally and/or in writing, with a specific focus on progress and steps towards the learning objective. Supports peer assessment and self-assessment. Supports the teacher's marking, for example via routine basic marking and annotations. Carries out pupil observations to support teacher assessment, and provides focused feedback to autistic pupils, which may include brief comments on how to improve and next steps. TAs support when a pupil is distressed. If an autistic pupil is displaying distressed behaviours, this should be monitored carefully and spotted quickly, marked by increased movement, tics, stimming, meltdowns, shutdown, etc. A TA will need to stay calm, use a neutral tone of voice, and attend to the pupil. Verbal communication should be limited to begin with. Usually, this will involve going to a quiet area, in or near the classroom, to reduce immediate discomfort and to reduce sensory inputs. They may need to sit on a particular surface, for example a beanbag or on the floor, and may need to make adjustments to their clothing, for example taking their shoes off temporarily. The TA should then facilitate the use of calming activities. TAs can also implement some of the interventions that we will be covering in the next video, once the pupil is ready to engage. Pen portraits, pupil passports, and one-page profiles. A pupil passport is a person-centered communication tool that captures all of the vital and specific information about an individual pupil. The pupil should contribute to its production. Some autistic pupils will not need this. Effective high-quality teaching guidance and monitoring can be sufficient. This is an additional personalised learning support that can be put in place for pupils with a more unique or complex profile of needs. It can be particularly helpful, for example, if the pupil experiences significant sensory experiences and anxiety. The pen portrait or pupil passport might include information about what works for the pupil, required seating plan arrangements, additional resources or equipment they may need to use, and any other types of reasonable adjustments that need to be applied, for example in in-class assessments. Here are examples of pen portraits, pupil passports, and one-page profiles. Feedback from autistic pupils. It is important to ensure that autistic pupils provide their views about their experiences in lessons. These should be planned, age and stage appropriate activities and integrated with other activities that are part of monitoring the effectiveness of class teaching. This can include, for example, pupil focus group sessions, simple surveys and questionnaires, short one-to-one interviews, collation of self-assessment in pupil work, and the outcomes from parent-teacher-pupil meetings. Teacher parent-carer meetings. Teacher parent-carer meetings are scheduled in school one or more times during the year. Teachers also communicate with parents and carers of some pupils at other times during the year for a range of reasons. It is very important that we feel confident in talking with parents and carers of autistic pupils, particularly regarding their child's profile of abilities and the strategies they use to remove any barriers to learning for them. This is underpinned by all of the strategies and systems we've outlined in this video. This is the end of this video. Part 4 on this topic is now available to watch. You can view more videos on this channel in the About series.